Hey guys, it's Seedin here, and today I will talk about the mistakes which I made when I was 14, like in acrylic painting and watercolor painting and in sketching. So in this video, I'll explain to you guys the mistakes I made. So let's go. Guys, I'm gonna do watercolors first in the series where I basically do watercolors first, then I'll do acrylics, and then I'll do sketches. So like this was like my mistake when I did watercolors, when I first started doing watercolors. So the first mistake was that like I basically applied paint on the paper first and then the water. It just did not look good in my opinion, because like the paint dried out really quickly, and which made it really difficult for me like to blend the colors in or to mix the colors. So the solution to this problem is that like put water on the paper first, and then the paint, like for example red and white, which will like help you to like blend the colors in and mix it properly. I'll give you an example of this. So put the water in first with a bigger brush. So I'll put like water in first like this, and then I'm gonna apply the red paint on like that. And then white color, because if you apply this technique, the colors will blend in really well. So like use this. The past mistake which I made was this, where I applied the paint first like this, which was a huge mistake, and then the white color. Because if you do this technique, it will make your life a lot difficult and harder, because the paint will dry really quickly, which will make it really difficult for you to like paint and mix. And like I'm gonna do like a flower painting of like watercolors, so like watch it. Okay, now we're gonna talk about acrylic paints, like the mistakes which I made in acrylic painting. Like in A levels, when I was like really new to painting, I used like too much water in my work. Like here for example, where I used a lot of water, and it made my work really watery, and it just doesn't look good in my view. But like if you want to use a lot of water in acrylic painting, go ahead. But like for me, this was a mistake, because like my aim was to make my work dry, not watery, and I made this mistake where I basically used a lot of water in my work, in acrylic painting especially, which made my work really watery. And the second thing is that like when you use too much water on paper, like here for example, the paper's crumb starts to show up. The paper, like the skin of the paper start to show up, like the paper comes out. Like for example, I don't know how to explain it, I'll just give a demonstration. When you use like too much water, like here, the tiny things of the paper start to come out. I think you can't see it properly, but like these things start to come out, like these little paper things start to come out. So that was the other mistake I made. So just be careful when painting, especially acrylic painting. So do not use like too much water. Use like a average amount of water, because if you use average amount of water, your painting will look watery and it will look dry at the same time, and it will make your work much better and less messy. And now I'm gonna basically do a time lapse of a draw apple painting using acrylic painting. Okay, so now we are gonna do sketching and shading. Like I will explain to you guys what mistakes I made when I first started sketching, when I first started shading. I did 12 before, so just ignore that bit. Okay, so I'm gonna do another eye, not this one, but another eye. I made this mistake when I was like 14, when I first started doing like sketching, Okay, so like I'll do an eye. I'll try to make this perfect, but I'm not too sure if it will be perfect. I think that's how an eye looks like. Okay, so like that. Yep. Okay, so like this, I'm just gonna do like a normal eye. This is really fun. Okay. It looks like a bird, like a feather of a bird, but it also looks like an eye. So I drew a pupil here and another pupil inside. I think that's what it's called. I'm not too sure, but I'll try. Okay, so that's the mistake I made. First of all is this. Shaded it in. Okay, so I did like that. That was like my first strategy when I first started sketching. Okay, so that's what I did. Like slowly blending in the dark areas with like a lighter pencil. I did the same with the pupil, like get the edge really dark. Like get the edge really dark. And the pupil too. Okay. And then make it lighter as it slowly blends in. That's what I did. Okay. So this was my old strategy, which I shouldn't have done, but thank God I did at the same time, because it made me learn of this new strategy, which was really helpful. Okay, so like that, I did it like that. Okay, slowly like that. Okay, so that's eyes finished. The problem is there's a problem, because like where light hits like an eye or like an object, it does not create this shade. It does not create this shade. It creates like a shade like this. It creates this shade. For example, like that. It creates that kind of shade. It creates that kind of shade. Not that kind of shade. It creates that. So like always like do this kind of shade rather than that kind of shade. So I'll do the eye again. It's for you guys. Okay, so like that. I'll try to make it better this time. The pupil wasn't right, and here it wasn't right here as well, but let's try to do it again. Okay, I'm gonna try to make it look like a human eye, but obviously I'm not perfect, but I try to be, but I fail all the time. So like that. Okay, does that look like an eye? Kind of. Not too sure how an eye looks. That's how an eye looks like, I think. But later on I'll do like a proper eye. Okay, so because like the circle is not fully shown, and I showed the circle, silly me. Okay, because only half of the circle is shown. Okay, like that. And then the thing here. Okay, that looks decent. I'll take that. And I'll try to do the old strategy again, and then I'll shade, which I should have done back in those days, like 6 years ago, 7 years ago ish. But I didn't do it. It's fine, because I learned something from it. Because if you learn something from your mistake, it's good. If you don't, then you're an idiot. So like, you must learn something from your mistakes, because it's really good. Okay, so the pupil, dark pupil. Okay. Ignore the background noise if you could hear it. Okay, I'll like make it lighter as it slowly goes in. See, that's how an eye looks like. It's a long time I drew an eye before, so I might do an eye again. It's been like quite a long time, like it's been at least like 6 years that I did an eye. Ooh, like a separate eye. I have done it on a face, but like not separately. So it's quite unusual, so I just forgot how an eye looks like. Okay, so get a cotton bud or like anything, or a tissue even, and then shade it in. Get the edge. Shade the edge really smoothly. Shade the edge smoothly. I recommend you guys to use like a cotton bud. It's cheap, and like you can like shade only the parts you want instead of like a tissue, because when I use a tissue it shades everything, then I have to rub it out. So that's the problem with the tissue. Just use a like cotton bud. It's cheap and it's good as well. I learned this from my art teacher, my A-level art teacher. She taught me how to do this, so thanks to her. So like that. So like do it like this way. And this way, like that. And then if you do it like this way, it looks like a realistic eye because there is a shading. If I did that kind of shading, it would not look right. It would look a bit wrong. It just will not look realistic. So like this way, yep. And the other thing is that don't use like your finger to do the shading. Instead use a cotton bud on your finger, because if you do that, your whole finger will be covered with like graphite like this. The whole finger with graphite, and it will be really messy. So it just will not look right and make a lot of your fingers very messy. So just don't do that. Instead use this. It's much better. So yeah, just do that. If you do this, your work will look much better. So just do that. And the second mistake is that like do not leave a blank when you draw a circle like this. Just don't do this, because when I did an eye before, I left a blank like that. Don't do that. I'll just explain to you why. Like I'll shade the circle in really nicely. Hope I make it perfect, but it's not perfect, but it's alright. It's okay, it's okay. I'll try my best. So it's okay like that. Okay, let me just speed it up a bit. Okay, so like that. Don't leave like a space out. Don't leave a space out. Don't leave a space out. Instead do this. Instead use like a rubber to do it, rather than leaving a space out in the beginning. Because like if I did that, because like there wouldn't be a shade on the edge, it'd be just like a straight line, and that's not how like when light hits the object it creates a shade, but here it does not create a shade, so don't do that. But instead like do it like that, like a very simple strategy which I use nowadays. So it makes my work look much better and like much more professional, even like that. So I will cover this circle up using graphite. I will like cover it up now. I will like cover it up. I will slowly cover it up now. Yep. And then like use a rubber. Use like a rubber, like a clean, but it's not clean, but it's fine. Get clean surface like here, and then create like a blank space using a rubber, like this one for example. Because if you do that, it will create like a shade. Like there will be like a shade coming off the edge, like here. It will create like a shade coming off the edge, and it will look quite nice. Because when light hits an object again, it creates a shade, so it will look like that, and it will look really realistic. So like try this strategy out instead of like creating a blank space in the beginning, because like there wouldn't be like a shade. So like just do this, because a rubber is a really good tool which I used back in the days, because it created a shade and it made my work look much better. And like now I will draw an eye, so like I hope you guys like it. that like I made is that I was like scared of like what I wanted to do, because like I felt like really scared that people were gonna judge me, which was a huge mistake from me, because I feel like now that like you must not care what people think. If people think like your work is bad or like over the top, just ignore them and just carry on what you want to do. Like if you want to do like a religious drawing, go for it. If you want to do a skating drawing, go for it. Or a apple or a life drawing, just go for it. Just do what you want to do. If people judge you, ignore them or swear at them. That's it. That's what I did. Just ignore them and just carry on what you want to do. That's like the mistake which I made when I was like really young. But then like when I was like 16 or 17, I did what I wanted to do, which was like religious paintings. And when I did that, I felt so good, because I was not scared of what people think about me. I just did what I wanted to do. That was the best decision of my life. So just do what you want to do and just ignore what other people think. And most importantly, thank you so much for watching my video. Please like, subscribe and share.